I'd like to do is just start. What we wanted to do was to suggest, I wanted to suggest some incredibly simple book forms. I can go through a number of book forms to suggest future meetings, but for this one, I wanted to just get us going by showing you the simplest book forms I know. They're sort of guerrilla bookmaking, so that you never walk out the door without something that could become a book very easily. All right, I'm gonna put this down to my table. So this is 8.5 by 11 paper. I have folded it. I walk out the door. That really is the simplest book because you can put a cover on later. So, and I want to, I know that sounds ridiculous, but I feel like it's important to kind of realize this, that you can always take flat paper, fold it, and it is the beginning of a book. So that's the simplest one. The next simplest one is where you put on a cover. This is the same text body, basically. And now it has a cover. This is cover weight paper. This is Astro Bright. I'm going to use very bright colors instead of white so you can see. But this is what I'm using is Astro Bright. And you can get it at Office Max or any place like that. And I just love these colors. So I folded this, I put it on, and I put on a rubber band. Nice big rubber band. That's the next simplest. And while we're talking about covers, I want to say something about the simplicity of making covers. This is a paper bag from Trader Joe's. And I've crumpled it, and then I've drawn on it, and I've made it so that it looks, like a map. So, covers, this is from a shopping bag. My grandson's clothes came home in this one day, and so I cut it up. It's just the same thing. It's got the inside text block, and it's got a rubber band as a binding. You can get fancy. I mean, this is from these are the placemats that I use. So I thought, well, that would be fun. Let's make a circular book and let's, tier the pages. So, and this is, I figured I'd put some beads on this. This is a pipe cleaner. And so that's the binding on this. We'll look at other bindings as we go along. But if, while I'm talking, I hope you're folding paper and I hope you're folding a cover of some kind, because the next binding I'd like to show you is a little more robust. And that is that you take your text block and you cut the corners. So you are cutting this. I'll get a sample one. So here's my cover. Here's my text block. And that's the difference in these weights of paper. I assume people know that, but if they don't, I'll be happy to discuss the difference in weights. Text block is generally considered, I don't know what it is for you, Inky, but for us, it's called 24 pound, and the cover weight is 65 pound. But anything like that, that is lighter paper and then something a little stiffer, a little heavier, a file folder is a good cover, and that's a good weight. So now you cut this and you attach your rubber band. And like I say, I mean, there's all kinds of fancy bindings, but often what I want is something that just goes out the door really fast so that I'm never without what I want. And obviously, instead of a rubber band, I can use yarn or ribbon or even thread. I mean, we can get to sewn bindings, but for the purposes of this workshop, I was thinking about how can we make these fast? So we could make, 10 of them in a few minutes, which is kind of the idea if you want to be experimenting with poetry prompts. This binding is sewn, and that's called a single signature binding. And I can show that a little later, but I didn't want to get into that until we'd written some poetry. But I want to suggest that the pages don't have to be flat. I mean, the nice thing about a text block is it immediately suggests folds. So these ends are folded, and that obviously could become part of the poem, part of the story. There could be secrets, there could be alternate endings, there could be different rhymes. There can also be this one, where you cut away. So these are just pages where I've cut, and then they're stacked so that it looks like a window, which is, and the reason I like these is because they're kind of, the fastness is kind of the point, is to just create something. A dummy book is what they're called when you're making them like this. And so that you can experiment. And then this is yet another variation on that theme. Here's the rubber band, which obviously could be a ribbon or could be yarn. And the pages are tiered. So it's the same 8.5 by 11 paper, but they're offset. And this suggests that there could be a poem this way. There could be a poem that goes across here, and then it could have either different lines that continue the poem, or it could have ideas for poems in here. And I'm hoping that Steve and I can work on, examples of this kind of form. So that's a real quick overview of this kind of bookmaking. Some of the other bookmaking forms that I'd love to get into are things like scrolls. So this is a fabric one, but obviously it could be paper, and you can write on cloth just like you can write on paper. There's this kind of a book, which is made with envelopes. So envelopes, obviously these days we don't use envelopes as much. So people have them lying around, and you can sew them together or put them together and make a book that has, openings for stories or letters or both. And while I'm on the subject, you could bind this with a home stapler only if you bound it here, but where the flaps are. I hope this is showing up. It's hard for me to see at this angle. What you need, if you're going to bind it the way I have it, is you're going to need a long arm stapler. So there are two varieties of long arm staplers. This is the least expensive one. It's about 30 bucks. And that goes as far as you want in. So these are great for zines. And the one for zines actually have a saddle on them. So they come to a point, a V, and the text block goes over the V, and then the stapler comes down on it. So it comes down on top of, let me get that right. So if you're doing production, then you want something like this. And those are about $45. And so here's another one of these envelope books. And when I tied it with yarn, I left a little so it could hang from a wall, a ceiling, something like that. The recent Vogue magazine has a flip book, if you can believe it, in it. You're supposed to cut these pages up, and then they even give you instructions on how to make a flip book with one of these clips. And you cut it up and you put a little clip on the top, and then you can see this lady, she's kickboxing. So flip books, they seem like they're perfect for a cartoon. This is a book that has no, the way you make this book is, let's see, how can I explain this? So one piece is cut with a shape, and all the other pieces go through that shape. So essentially the cardboard or the cover is the binding. So here's one piece. All the other pieces are cut so that they fit into that. Does that make sense?
No.
Okay.
It didn't to me.
Okay. Well, and I could, like I said, I just wanted to quickly suggest these, because these are two cuts, and then they fit together. And we can do it together, but I'm sort of just quickly going through these to suggest places we can go with book arts very easily. This one, I think a lot of people know. It's this little one piece. It starts out one piece of paper, an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, and then we fold it, and then we cut it, and then it turns into a little booklet. And when you want to design it so that you know where to put your illustrations, you design it like this. You make a dummy book, and this tells you that the cover is here, page 2 is here, going in this direction, the opposite direction. So this is how you figure out how to make this little book out of one sheet of paper. And there's a whole host of one sheet books that have different cuttings. And this is just a really, I'm just going to show the concept of an accordion. So these are Post-its, and see how they have, for some reason, instead of being bound on one side, they're bound on both edges, which is an accordion. And that would be something you would do with glue with your sheets of paper. Here's another accordion. This one has pockets. Let me just tip this up. So this one is a sheet of paper that I drew. There we go. It's a sheet of paper, it's folded up, and then it's put into an accordion. And the pockets are what you could put parts of your story into. This is, you know, the same sheet of paper, only without any pockets. So that's a brief introduction to the simplest book forms I know. I mean, it would be wonderful to do a whole day of just accordion. It would be wonderful to do a whole day of these little theaters, these little one sheet papers, books. It'd be wonderful to do flip books. But I think this is a learning curve for Steve and for me as to how poetry might fit into these forms. And that if we have a sense of interest, then we can work together to design writing that uses the form of the book to accentuate the story or the poem. And that's what I have to say.
I just wanted to say, it reminds me of a really cool example that I saw a few years ago of like using folding to accentuate or to work with some poetry, where basically there was a page with words, like a single word or a couple of words that kind of made sense as a poem. But then when you folded out the other end, like each word or a couple of words were continued with longer, which changed completely like the sense of what you were reading. And kind of an interest. So there was like kind of two ways to read it, depending on whether it was folded or unfolded.
Well, that's interesting, because it does seem to me that it would be easy enough. It's easy enough to make a book that comes in from the sides, right? So you have a sheet of paper, and instead of folding it in the middle, you fold it here and here. And now if you do several of those and you tier them, the poem is talking. These are two voices. And the poem can go back and forth right there. Yeah. I think that one of the most fun things about book arts is that if you brought in a model like that, we would dissect it. You know, we would figure out what is the magic, what is the possibility, and then we would all create variations on that theme. Steve, you want to go?
Yeah, I was taking some notes over here a moment. I
Okay.
was wondering if we could all do, let's see exactly how many pages, maybe settle on a specific model of a very simple codex, maybe do, I forget the term you used, Jill, but the single thread, it looked like we like pierced two holes in the fold, and then just a single string tying like a loop in there as the binding.
That's actually that's a single signature binding, and it needs 3 holes. And so you need needle and thread for that.
Okay.
You could do 2. I mean, you could just. I mean, classically it's a 3, and there's a figure 8 that you do, and I think, you know, one of the reasons I can certainly show that, but what happens is it's fixed.
Sure.
And it feels very much like a book, and that's nice. But when I'm workshopping this and you think, I don't know how I want this to go together, then one of the things about the rubber band or the tie is you can take it apart very quickly and replace pages. And so for me, that has the real advantage that, you know, I'm racing out the door, I grab something, I do some sketches, I write some journal entry, and then I go, actually, I don't want this page. I'd like to redo it. And then I'd like to sew it or bind it after I've made, you know, some more, in other words, the creation and the editor stay separate. But if you'd like to do that, if people have needle and thread, then I'll be happy to show that.
I think your idea is a good one. So can we use a rubber band or just a string tied in a loop as our binding today? I'm thinking of just an exercise on a very simple book without any folds.
And you don't even need to put anything. I mean, again, if you fold it and you decide, in a way, the easiest is to just fold and then decide later what you want to keep, and then decide what the binding is.
Jill, do you have a suggestion how many pages we should bind?
I'm not sure what Steve wants to do. When I make dummy books, I start with 5 pages in the text block and then the cover. And then obviously you can add. if they're cut to the same size, the cover and the text block will start to show at the edges, at the foredge, as you add folds, which may or may not be, happy or annoying to you.
Well, you telegraphed or telepathed that just fine, because I used 5 pages folded in half
Yeah,
and a file, half of a file cover, file folder,
right.
which also has this like nice little
Mhm,
thing here.
right.
And Jill knows I have like just a little bit of leftover yarn. So I tied it with some yarn.
Right. Right. Do you want to hold it up so we can see? Okay, so will you open it so we can see the text block? I've got you pinned. Yeah. Okay, hold it up a little more. Yeah. All right. Yeah.
And I used all fancy colors.
Yeah. Okay, great. Anyone else wanna? We can pin people. I can pin people, and then they show in the recording. Early, you want to show? Yeah, you're holding. Okay, let me replace the pin. Go ahead.
This is just a cardstock that I've had for years.
Yeah.
And just really nice, smooth, white paper that is, people have used it for doing calligraphy, but I love the feel
Nice.
of it. And
Yeah.
I don't have any elastics, but I just went and grabbed my Christmas box of ribbons. So I'm going to find some.
Right, right.
interesting.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Right.
thank you.
That's great. Anyone else want to show us a dummy?
I saw earlier you
working on
trimmed your
Oh,
covers.
wait. Deb, I'm going to pin
Well,
you.
Oh,
Go ahead.
did I unmute? So anyway, I'm working on mine. I'm using a handle bag for
Oh,
my
nice.
cover,
Uh-huh.
but I'm trying to figure out how to get it so I can just put a rubber band around it to keep it together. Or maybe at the end I'll have something.
Paper bags are great. They're so fabulous.
Well, Jill, I'm taking my cue from you and your brown book.
Okay. Well, I just want to say, as a paper maker, paper is made for different reasons. I mean, you want toilet paper to dissolve and disintegrate. You don't want a paper bag to. So paper bags are wonderfully strong. And when you crinkle them up and uncrinkle them, and then you do some texture to the top, they're wonderful. It's that wonderful sort of brown too. There's something about it that's very, very lovely. Anyone else want to hold up something? Yeah.
I can hold it.
Yeah.
Mine is just very simple.
Give me a
folded
second.
paper.
There, replace the pin. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
literally just some old paper that has kind of a nice tooth to it that I just folded. And then I figured I just made this 2 days ago.
Oh, sweet.
It's actually, it's a real dummy book of something I've been working on in Photoshop, but I added a stanza and then I wanted to feel the page turns. So I just printed them and I just glued them all actually like an accordion. It was like a giant accordion. And then I just had an elastic that it's like glued into the frame or into the cover, and then the little elastic just lets me hang it on my desk lamp.
Totally sweet. Oh my gosh.
It's cute.
So that the binding goes through the middle of the accordion. Is that it?
Yeah, it's just sitting in the center spread. Yeah.
And so can you pull out one side, or are the ends of the accordion pasted down?
The ends are pasted down.
Okay.
Yeah,
That
but
is
without
lovely.
the elastic, it kind of sags a little
Right,
bit, and
right.
it's just better.
That's great. That's lovely. Yeah. Anyone else?
I
Well,
have
this is
a,
what I do with
yeah.
my scraps. Ooh,
Inky,
yeah.
hang on. I need just
Yeah.
a minute to
I
replace
wait.
the pen. Okay, go for it. Go ahead. Can you hear
Who?
me? Go ahead.
Who?
You, Inky.
Okay, yeah, thank you. I've just taken copy paper
Yeah.
and I happened to have rubber bands in my desk.
Mhm.
And I did this version where you cut off the corners.
Right.
I'd never seen this before, very exciting to get to know this. And I'm reluctant to put a cover on it because I have very sensitive skin and I love it if it's soft.
Oh, nice.
So
Yeah.
maybe I would just put another sheet of copy paper, which I have painted. And
Okay.
then that would be the cover, yeah.
Oh, great. Okay.
Mm.
I also want to suggest that if you know, instead of cutting the corner, you can just cut down the fold. So if you just make a slight cut, like half an inch down the fold, then you can pull your thread or your ribbon or whatever into that. If for some reason you didn't like the boldness of that cut.
Mhm.
The whole point is just to keep it together in a quick way. So anyone else, or should we move on to words? You ready, Steve?
Yeah, I have a presentation to share.
Okay. All right, I'm
And-
gonna, shall I allow share screen?
Yes, please.
Yeah, just a sec. I just, share screen. Multiple participants. Okay, great.
Okay. And I might be able to, once I share this, copy and paste my notes into the comments as well.
Okay.
I hope so. Getting set up over here. All right, that should do it. Right.
Yeah, we can see poetry, comics, poetry.
Yep, that's the name of my presentation today.
Okay. Directed to the point.
Yes. Yeah, if someone looks like I won't be able to, I don't know how to copy my notes, my comments into our chat. Would someone be willing to kind of transcribe some notes during this? There won't be any interaction during this point. So at this point, it's just a presentation on comics poetry before we get to the exercise itself.
Yeah, I'll go ahead.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. So yeah, I'm going to pick up where Jill left off to put images and text on the pages we bound together. We're going to need 8 pages, I think. So that's not 8 sheets, but 8 pages, spreads of 2. So a left side and a right side equals page 1 and 2 pages.
So that's 4 sheets, is that right? 8 pages of 4 sheets.
I believe so,
But
yeah.
then folded in half, it's actually 2, isn't it? 1, 3, 4, 5. It's 2 sheets folded in half, both sides. Is that right?
Let's
I think
see.
so. You're looking for 8 sides?
Yes, but I'm looking for the inside to be the first page. So
So
Oh, okay.
okay, so
Got there.
3. So with with a cover,
Yeah.
with a cover page. So 3 sheets.
3 sheets.
Folded.
It'll require 3 sheets.
Okay, 3 sheets folded, which gives, wait, okay,
There'll be 2 extra pages at the end, but that's fine.
yeah, okay.
3 sheets folded in half.
Okay.
And I'll explain more when we get to the exercise. But yeah, this first session, we're kind of doing a pretty simple codex as our book, you know, just a regular book spine pages. Even though Jill gave us these fascinating examples and alternatives for what you can do with the book. So yeah, I'm not gonna explore how poetry and comics together could do interesting things with different forms of books. We're gonna stick with a kind of straightforward form of books. But let's see. But yeah, like I said earlier, you know, like the feel of a book, the look and feel of a book affects what you think about what you see inside it, what's printed in it, or drawn in it, or painted on it. So we'll keep in mind the feel of the book we've just made, and how that is going to relate to what goes into it, or what we might appreciate about it afterwards. This is a presentation on poetry comics, but I'm going to be calling them poetry comics and comics poetry pretty interchangeably. Here's a definition of poetry. We'll go into that, and then a definition of comics by Alexander Rothman, writing in the Indiana Review, which is an arts magazine that also publishes comics poetry. So poetry is a form where the medium is language. Other forms have ancillary concerns, for instance, plots for novels, arguments for essays, and performances for plays. Of course, poems can take on these concerns, and of course, language plays a central role in these other forms. But at the end of the day, more than any other practitioner, a poet just dealing with words. And she sets out to do work, she must ask herself, how do I solve this creative problem with language? Or what else can language do? That's my working definition of poetry. He says it's similarly difficult to define comics in any conclusive, meaningful way. He approaches the form as one that treats images like other writing treats words, and it does so most basically through juxtaposition. So can people see my pointer, by the way?
Yes.
Yep.
My pointer? Okay. So you've got this bomb lit, you've got the explosion of the crater. Obviously, we put together that this crater and the smoke is the ground after the bomb has erupted. But if seeing those images separately, you wouldn't necessarily make that connection in a different order or with different things in between. The juxtaposition is what provides the narrative. But that's not the only way you can use juxtaposition to compare images side by side or overlapping or what have you. A is bigger than B, X plus Y evokes nostalgic sadness. All these different combinations can have different effects. There are those exceptions. There's no firm, precise way to define poetry or comics without there being exceptions. With comics, even there's a single panel far side maybe, and there's words on the bottom. There's one picture, but I can't remember. I bet there's far side comics where it's just the picture, and because of the context around it and the style of the drawing, okay, that's a comic. So we're going to explore what comics poetry is without putting absolute borders around it. This is a quote from an interview from Seth, a comics artist that's meant a lot to me and influenced me. He says that words and pictures make up comics language and are often described as prose plus illustration. He thinks that's a bad metaphor. and poetry and graphic design seems more apt. I think that's an interesting combination to think of comics consisting of. I'm not going to read through these, but it's a little debate on whether to use the term poetry comics or comics poetry. I'm going to present the considerations differently as a sort of illustration. The grid that I started with. It's a visual argument, maybe to consider the phrase we prefer. We might think that the second word as noun rather than adjective has primacy in the phrase.
Wait, pause for a second.
Yeah.
Say that again about the noun.
So like on the top row, the phrase is poetry comics.
Okay.
And so comics is the noun, comics is the thing, and poetry is describing the comics.
Okay.
In the second row, it's comics poetry. So poetry is the thing, and the kind of poetry it is comics poetry. And so I think that's the semantic argument, or at the heart of it. But then I just wanted to use this grid as an example of how we might think about words differently in space outside of just the linear order of how they're spoken or the grammatical order. Do we see things differently when we see this as a visual sequence or as a grid? There's, of course, like the left and right conventions of reading in English, and the top down, you know, top is superior or top is what comes first. That guides our thinking. Does putting the words in the opposite place in the grid offer a different argument? Maybe. I don't think there's a lot to this argument, but the questions and considerations that might not add up to much in this example are the sorts of things we can pay more attention to and extract meaning from when we read comics as poetry, or with more conscious attention to the conventions of the medium. I don't know, things like, oh, comics might actually come first, even though if you read it as a phrase, comics poetry, poetry is the main thing. Well, he wrote the word comics first. What does that mean? For the readers of comics poetry, like regular poetry, the genre invites you to invest time and thought into grappling with what you're seeing or reading, to work with it and ponder it. It often isn't made for easy or rapid consumption, but the investment bears fruit. I think there's a similar silver lining for comics artists who might be very preoccupied with details. If you have a tendency to spend a lot of time considering the effects of every minute aspect of a comic, even a narrative one, or especially a longer one, a short comics poem is a place where agonizing over those choices can pay off, or will pay off, in one small package, like one gemstone, one little trinket. Conversely, and conveniently even, the opposite case is true. It's also a practice where thinking much less consciously and less self-consciously, and with less calculation, pays off immensely. I'm going to do some examples, share some examples from Inkbrick, a journal of comics poetry that's co-edited by Alexander Rothman, who I quoted earlier. There's 10 editions of it, full color comics poems. They're still available for sale online. It's interesting stuff. This is a page from a comic called He Who Is Upon His Mountain by Alexandria Begues. The focus of the exercise we're going to do today will be on contrasting images with words in a way that's in tension with the images and in a way that seems conscious rather than wholly free form. Maybe, actually that might not be the case, but that's the kind of the guiding suggestion I'm going to give. But I also want to show some examples outside of that, and examples where images reinforce one another with pronounced contrast or ironic interplay. So here's one such example. The page reads, "Newfound stillness has made this long ascent an arresting one. Never have I given attention to the swollen night sky. My insouciant guide is unmoved by the firmament. He has made this trip before." And it took me a minute to read through this. Okay, newfound stillness. Here's the ascent, obviously. Newfound stillness. Oh wait, this guy's completely still. He might be dead or unconscious.
Mhm.
Never have I given attention to the swollen night sky. if he's looking down, is he giving attention? Has he given attention to the night sky even now? My insouciant guide, my nonchalant, unaffected guide is unmoved by the firmament. He has made this trip before. But I got confused as to what's meant to be the guide, what's meant to be the observer, and I enjoyed that puzzle that it kind of provides. A lot of, hey, wait a minute moments as I was reading that one.
It's interesting you describe it both as confusion and as a puzzle you enjoy.
Yeah, puzzles start with some confusion. Here's some examples of deviations. This is also from the same issue of Ink Brick. It's two separate comics or comics poems by Heather Simon, and they're scattered throughout the book. The first one reads, translation is ammunition, there's a space there. Intentions are wounds. I am making gray without black, although there's LA on a baseball cap there. Cicadas, pedal steel guitar, extra space, strings. I don't know how much conscious deliberation, drafting, or trial and error went into this one, but it seems especially intuitive and freely associative compared to the other examples I'm sharing. It's not necessarily using the particular devices of comics, but in the context of the anthology, it counts as poetry comics. There isn't an obvious or especially conscious tension or shared explicit meaning between the words and images, at least as far as I can see. Might just be beyond me as a reader. I want to very quickly run through a presentation that Tom Hart put together, our founder here at SAW. Part of the reason I want to go quickly is, like, I think the majority of people in this room right now have already read this thing, but it's a survey of from pure image to pure text, a range of word picture formats. He starts with pure visuals, and the examples are paintings in a gallery with some text on the wall, perhaps to help people understand what moments and story you're painting. The paintings are meant to be stared at. Most of the Western world's earliest famous paintings were of biblical or mythical scenes. Everyone knew the stories already. This helped them visualize it. Or on the opposite end, a Mark Rothko painting, which is storyless, but meant to be stared at and stared at. His next example, or this is still a purely visual story, but it's arguably a comic without words, sequential images without text. The next one is picture book style. And getting into deviations and exceptions here is me taking some exceptions with the continuity that Tom has laid out. But he talks about these as books where pictures carry the emotional and dramatic weight. The text guides the reader from one cool image to the next. He gives an example later that we'll get to, where he says that the text is the important thing and the images hang off of it. This one, he says that the images are of more interest than the text, and I'm not sure there's as much of a difference between those two. Comic style, that's the one we're most familiar with, where there's text and image, and each carry equal weight, and in some sense, some spirit are balanced on the page. Mostly text would be picture books. Here's Alice in Wonderland illustrated. Tom says that Dr. Seuss fits the bill, even though it's such little text and there's the big images around. The Lorax is really truly about the story and the words, and the pictures help us visualize or get the message of the story. These I thought were pretty interesting. Text separate or text only. These are comics that are mostly the devices of comics without representational images. This one's pretty interesting. Birth comics. Oh shoot, I don't see the title of who made this on here, but it's almost like a bingo grid, and it can be read in different orders. A baby is born. She is named Angela. The mother holds her. Angela waves one fat hand. And you could do this one. She is named Angela. Angela turns toward her mother, who becomes the father. The pain is intense. He holds her hand. He kisses his wife. And then there's an experimental example of basically like picture book, narrative with an illustration, followed by a regular comics page in the same exact story or comic. But I wonder if a lot of other things count as comics that we don't necessarily think of as comics. This is an example, a friend of mine let me share a work of their art that they recently made. I don't know if it's pure image or it becomes more or less than pure image if you assign a certain name to it or describe with a word what it's about. I think it's very beautiful. These circles and lines and almost like stained glass or a mosaic. But if we say that what this is describing is Medusa, suddenly the abstract becomes representational. There's serpents and stone and fractured stone and eyes everywhere. There's stone made out of eyes, or eyes set into the concrete, eyes as sediment. And we need to know the story of Medusa to understand all of these aspects as the story of Medusa. And again, it's a piece where that's not obvious if you just see the piece alone. Here's an example from some excerpt pages from a picture book, The Red Tree by Sean Tan. Is the narrative what carries it? The text is beautiful and poetic, whatever that means, but for the most part, I would say that it's pretty meager without the images. The same can't be said for the lyrics of Dr. Seuss, so I don't know if this fits exactly in Tom's categories. So the first page reads, sometimes the day begins with nothing to look forward to. The room is pretty spare, and things go from bad to worse. Black leaves consume the room. And I think part of this example I wanted to share was that there's things to enjoy, even if there's not like the utmost tension or calculation put between some of the text and images. And it can be purely illustrative, and we don't have to worry too much about that. Here's an example of a page. The world is a deaf machine, or a spread. And the image is very elaborate and fascinating. The world is an industrial monster, and it looks very loud, and the mouth is open, swallowing these people, and maybe it's yelling and belching as well. So the world isn't only a deaf machine, it's a loud machine. We don't know that it's a deaf machine unless we see the words. And in terms of poetry in this particular story, I feel like this is the strongest phrase. The world is a deaf machine. And it almost stands on equal footing with this powerful image. This is a kind of phrase I've used in poetry before and been self-conscious about, saying something. Sometimes you will wait and wait and wait and wait and wait and wait. Or you're saying something over and over and over again, over. Endless, endless, endless. It has the same effect as the words. Like when is he going to stop saying wait? It becomes tiresome. But this it reinforces without really contrasting. Okay, someone's drawing linear, counting the days over and over. Oh, but they're on something round. It's a spiral. Are they spiraling outward or are they spiraling inward? Oh no, they're on the slowest of all imaginable creatures, but the creature's moving forward. But oh no, the creature's moving and a curved line and shrinking inward as the words are shrinking inward. So there's like a recursive and a linear and illustrated. There's all these different ways that are like modifying and enhancing and underlining the point. And the day, getting at the end of the comic and picture book comic, and the day seems to end the way it began, but suddenly there it is right in front of you, bright and vivid, quietly waiting. Bright and vivid is smaller. Maybe Tan thought, oh, okay, this is already in the image. Maybe it's a little bit redundant. I'll shrink that one down. I like that the words add quietly waiting, something that's bright visually, you don't necessarily think of as quiet. But again, there's not amazing fireworks in terms of what the words are doing compared to the image. Just as you imagined it would be. Beautiful. And then this is the final spread of the story.
Wow.
Splotched paint, you know, it's the red leaves. Could be blood, it's life, it's death, whatever it is, it's glorious and all-consuming. So is this picture book, which is also a sequentially illustrated story, also a comic poem? I'd argue yes, but I also don't especially care where it falls on the map. What I know most of all is that it moves me and involves me, and I love it. So introducing the exercise, poetry or comics as poetry doesn't have to be ponderous or self-important. My friend and SAW participant, Kayla Placencio, likes to say, poetry should be fun. It should be like music. There are lots of unconscious, unexamined reasons why you love some kinds of music and not others, some songs and not others. When pressed to ask why you love a song, you might say, I don't know, it makes me feel that this way or that. It's interesting, I can relate to something in it. In the end, investigating why can be instructive and constructive in further developing your art and appreciating others' art, but that doesn't have to have anything to do with what attracts you to something in the first place. You love music before you take a music appreciation class. You continue to love music even if you never take a music appreciation class. So let's have fun together here. Let's play, let's goof off in class together. All right, so for our exercise, with our 8 pages, we're going to take the second half of a poem for 2 Voices by Malcolm Cowley. And we're gonna open to our first spread of pages. So this is the pages as a book and not each individual sheet. So, you know, fold your first page open. And on the left side, we're going to write down however we like that first line. And then on the right side, we're going to choose. So let's use this first line as an example. Under the chestnut trees are ferns knee deep. On the right side of the page, let's illustrate either something else under the chestnut tree than ferns, or ferns underneath something other than chestnut trees. And we'll follow that same formula onto the next spread when we flip the page. So the left side will be trample through them, and we shall find the spring. And it could be an image of trampling through something other than ferns, or trampling through ferns to find something other than a spring.
Now, let me see
I'll
if I
go through
got
the
this.
Mhm.
So we have 3 pages. So
3 sheets, yeah.
okay, so you take the first sheet and you don't put anything on the front. Then on the
That's correct.
inside, you write under the chestnut trees are ferns knee deep.
Mhm.
And then you leave the left side open for illustration
That's correct.
or drawing. Then,
Yeah.
So then you open, and so the idea is to first put in the lines
Mhm.
on these, okay. And I'm just trying to,
Well, maybe
again, to translate that into.
Sure.
instructions.
And maybe the best way to do this would be to just like time out each interval. Like we're going to spend this many minutes
One,
on this
two,
first spread, and now we're going to jump to the next one, and then I can repeat what we do each time. So
I just don't, I'm a little confused about how many lines end up being
Yeah.
in this.
sure, yeah.
So
So
you just go as far as you can and then stop for the number of pages.
oh
you
my
have?
God, I think I miscalculated. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
That was kind of what I was,
Oh my God. What a mess. Okay.
Well, we could do 2 lines on each
Yeah,
of the 3
yeah.
spreads.
Okay.
what, 1, 2, 3, okay. And then we're just not doing it. It's too late now for finding. Right? Or maybe we'll
You-
put that in later. Okay.
So my original idea was we take a line on the
Okay.
left side of a page, left side of it, on the left side, and then on the
Mhm.
right we do an illustration, and we do it for 1, 2. We do it for each of them,
Right.
except we find under the hill would be the left side, and then a blank right side,
Okay.
and then the final spread would just be an illustration instead of all of this.
Oh,
But I can't believe that I got the
Yeah.
page count wrong here. That's a pretty obvious thing.
well, that's the nice thing about these books. If you just fold some more paper.
Yeah, let's just fold some more paper.
Right.
Okay.
I mean,
Okay.
it looks like we're going to have like 7
1, 2,
activities,
3,
6 lines plus
5,
the last one.
7. So I think it'll be 14 pages.
Okay. So,
I think 7 pieces of paper folded will give us 7 spreads, 14 pages. Does that sound right, Steve?
I think we'll need one more because
Okay.
because of that cover, because we're not doing the cover sides. Yeah, I think 8 should do it.
And so we're just going to do the first one for at the moment. Is that
Yeah. Let's do about 5 minutes on each of these. Any questions about doing that first spread? Does that make sense?
again, I'm trying to write this down for the notes.
Yeah.
So, did you decide on 8? If each line is on its own page, we
That's
need
correct.
more. We need how many pages?
We need 8 sheets to have 14 spread
8.
pages.
8 sheets to have 14. Okay. 14 spreads and a title page and page. Okay, great. Okay.
So on the left side, under the chestnut trees are ferns knee deep. And on the right, unless people want to go off the rails, which they're welcome to, we'll draw something besides ferns under the chestnut trees. We'll draw the ferns underneath something other than chestnut trees. 2.5 minutes left on this one.
You're doing 5 minutes per page?
5 minutes per spread,
Okay.
yeah.
Thunder and inky. I feel like I'm in a Linda Berry prompt.
Right.
I'll be right back. "25 seconds. Five, four, three, two, one. All right. Now, Jill, if you could put this one in the notes too, just that we're moving on to the next spread. The next line on the left side will be, to trample through them. We shall find the spring. And again, our formula is going to be the line written on the left side. And on the right, we'll draw trampling through either something other than ferns or finding something other than the spring. halfway through. One minute. Ten seconds. It's time for that. Now we move on to our next spread of pages. Turn the page. And we'll write on the left, which issues miraculously from the chestnut roots. And on the right page, we'll draw either something beside the spring issuing miraculously from the chestnut roots, or the spring issuing miraculously from something other than the chestnut roots. Now, if it's a miracle, a lot of weird stuff could be issuing from those chestnut roots. We're about 2.5 minutes now. Oh, let's give it another minute. Lost track of my timer here. Twenty seconds. Oh, 5 seconds. Okay. Next line. And if we follow the stream among the thickets, we write that on the left side. And on the right, we will either follow something other than a stream, or we will follow a stream among something other than the thickets. Thanks for coming, Cheryl. 2.5 minutes. One minute. Realigning my clock here. All right. Next spread. On this side, we'll write, and across the burned ground where briars snatch at us. And again, the formula will be, we'll show this phrase with briars snatching at us across something other than burned ground, or something other than briars snatching at us across burned ground. 2 minutes. One minute. Ten seconds. Okay. So for the rest of the poem, the formula is going to be a little different. We're going to open to the next spread. And on the left side, we're just going to copy that next line. We shall find under the hill, ... And then we're going to leave the right page empty. And after we do that, we're going to flip the page. And our final spread is just going to be an illustration substituting that entire stanza in italics. And we can draw from the images that are in there if we want to. Or we can relax a moment and just splash something out that follows everything that comes before.
Stephen, I didn't get it exactly.
Sure.
Are we to leave the last page white, or are we to draw something in there?
Leave that last page empty.
Yeah,
Yep. The left side will have the line, we shall find under the hill, ...
yeah,
And then leave that empty.
yeah.
And then flip the page. And across those two pages, just draw something as a substitute for that entire last stanza that's written in italics.
Mm-hmm. Flip the page means turn the page?
Yes.
Or does it mean turn the book around? No, okay.
Yeah, it means turn to the next spread.
Double page, yeah, thank you.
Next doubles page, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Steve, I'm going to ask again because I'm writing it in the notes.
Mhm.
So we write on the left side and draw on the right. This is for the 6 lines, not in italic. For this,
I'm putting some stuff in the comments as well. I've been writing.
oh, okay.
Yeah, I've been
okay.
writing instructions in the comments.
Oh,
yeah.
great. Okay, on the left page, then leave the right page. Oh,
Does that make sense so far?
well,
I can't see the
all the
comments.
titles for spring.
Sure.
Steve
Oh, yeah,
wants to
I
line,
can.
we
Thank
write
you.
it down. This
And
is
I can
6
repeat
lines,
this
not in italic.
as many times
Okay.
as you'd like.
Okay, so what I'd like you to do, because now I've put up my notes,
Yeah.
is this is for the 6 lines, not in italic. So then write what happens next. How do you explain that to someone? It's the 7th spread, right? And we leave it blank.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Okay, so if you'll type that out.
Yeah, I can follow up where you have there.
Okay, great. Okay, perfect.
Hmm. Oh my God. Oh, sorry.
Any more questions about our final formula here? All right, we'll spend some extra time on this one. We've got 1 minute left. right, time's up. How'd that go for everybody?
I only got to the third sentence.
Fine.
Okay. Yeah, this is fun. I like this poem. It's really nice.
Mm-hmm. I do too. I worked mine out a little differently though. I used the 8-fold, you know, the one page that's eight. I think it's still wet though.
Oh, wow.
But I liked it so much, I didn't want to work on the sort of bright but cheap paper. I wanted to use paper that I've already painted. So, so it becomes a thing.
Hmm.
Steve, could you stop sharing your screen?
Yeah.
I was chatting away here on mute. So we could see.
Yeah, let's look at what people did.
Stop share. Okay.
Okay, and then as people show, I will pin them. I really like doing that because then it shows up in the recording. So I'll start because I just showed this. So let me pin myself. So I started on, you know, on paper like this, but it just felt wrong. The paper was, you know, too bright and too pink. And so, you know, the nice thing about being home is I can go and get a sheet of paper that I've drawn on and painted that I use for my brown project. So now I have this as that 8-fold that I said we would get to if we, and there's not much in the way of illustration. It's just more abstract dots and lines and things like that. Because I wasn't sure how much time I would have either doing the notes. Okay, who would like to go next?
Do those pages come pre-painted?
Yeah, I paint, I take large sheets of paper and paint them.
Cool.
Yeah. Susan, you want to go?
Sure.
I'm going to replace my pin. Okay, go.
Okay. Let's see. I'm not seeing me. Did you spotlight me or pin me?
You're pinned.
Well, it's
Does
interesting.
everyone-
I'm not.
Does everyone
I'm
see
not.
Susan as large? Is she? Steve, do you see Susan as takes up?
No,
the
I only
note?
see Susan when she's speaking, and I'm afraid I don't know how to do spotlight. I'm not seeing it anywhere in my menu.
Yeah, so
If you
it's-
go on the 3 little blue dots, do you have a spotlight option below the 3 little blue dots?
I don't think I
You
have
put
little blue dots. I'm on a Mac.
when you're talking, we can see
Okay, when
you.
you're talking.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, blue dots. Okay.
Okay.
I only have the options to chat or pin when I hover over someone's image
Oh,
and go to
maybe
the
Jill
blue
didn't
dot.
make it. Okay. Well, anyway, I can see myself here. So you guys will tell me if I.
Okay, yeah.
There's
I
my
can
first
see.
image.
Uh-huh.
I wish had done better paper too. And then trample through them and we shall find the spring.
Hmm.
And I had fun writing. I don't have a
Yeah,
rubber band, but I
having
find
it-
writing the words. Mhm.
Right.
And I skipped a page for Lord only knows what reason. Which issues miraculously from the chestnut roots,
Uh-huh.
little mushrooms
Yeah.
underneath all roots, and follow the stream among the thickets. So I made a picket fence,
Mhm.
and the boots
I
are
love
showing
it.
up
Yeah,
again
that's
in
right.
in the ferns.
Mhm.
And across burned ground where briars snatch us. And so I have a barbed fence, and we're trading off these little tiny boots.
That's interesting. You have these little paw prints lower and then the
Uh-huh.
boots. It wouldn't make
Yep.
those at all.
And
You
we
show
shall
that?
find
Yeah. Yeah.
under the hill
Right.
where the little girl without her boots is
Oh.
sleeping. And I have no idea what June berries look like, but there's a basket of
Oh,
filled
okay,
berries.
okay.
It's great fun.
And is the back page empty then? Is it so
Well, I have an extra,
you have extra
I had
pages?
an extra page, so I have like an extra blank in here. So,
Okay,
Yeah.
you know,
right. So you could,
Sherry-
that could be
Sherry
the
figured
end
out-
page.
Sherry figured out that we only need 4 sheets to get all our unnecessary spreads.
Yeah, yeah, my poem ends at the middle fold of my book, so I have to write another stanza.
We
Right, right.
got about 4 minutes
Yeah.
left. I think that's enough time. Is that time? Is that time for one more person to share?
Oh, I see, because we're getting up to time.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just going to go across. Inga, I have you next, just going across. Do you want to share?
Who?
Inga?
you.
That's you, yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm trying to figure it out. I've made it as an attachment in my mail. So I must see which is number 1 and which is number 2 and so on.
Were you working the entire thing digitally?
No, I photographed it.
Oh, could you lift it up to the screen? For
Yeah,
now?
sure. It will be the easiest solution. I think.
Yeah, and it'd
Yeah.
be lovely if anybody who wants to can post theirs on the
Yes,
in the forum
Um,
afterwards as well.
yes. Under the chestnut tree are ferns knee deep.
And what's going on in the? I see the fields of color. Are those
You see
fish?
what- Yes, it's water. And it's also the colors of Ukraine.
Hmm.
Right.
Trample through them and we shall find the spring. This is a picture I saw today. A friend sent it to me.
Oh, I love that you're using those colors. Yeah.
Hmm.
Nice.
Which issues miraculously from the chestnut roots.
And a little mouse.
Yes,
Yeah.
And what's next to the mouse there?
it's a little plant. When they start out, they are
Mm.
spirals, you know? And
Oh
then
yeah,
they-
yeah,
Right,
yeah.
right, right.
Mhm.
The fiddlehead.
Oh, right. Fiddlehead fern.
And if we follow the stream among the thickets, this was the heaviest emotion when I drew this.
Mhm. Oh, I feel that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Love the abstract imagery.
Mhm.
Sorry?
The abstract imagery.
Yeah. And the chaos. And across burnt ground where briars snatch at us.
Oh, wow. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, it's beautiful.
We shall find under the hill.
Mhm.
It's the fire.
Wow,
Yeah.
wow.
Wow.
So thank you very much. It's a great
Yeah,
experience.
that's beautiful.
Thank you.
Very intense. Yeah. Sherry, do you want to go? I mean, you know, people can leave, obviously, if they.
Sure, sure. Maybe, hope we can see it. I just use a ballpoint pen. So instead of drawing underneath what was underneath, I just thought the camera would be underneath the tree. So looking up at a tall tree, just kind of seeing the sky, and I just put a little character in there because I thought it's always helpful. For trample through them, and we shall find. So spring, I guess I was imagining sort of the words are trampling through, or the words are on the place where we've run through them. And then we shall find the spring. I kind of just thought spring could be water, but spring could be the springtime. And so I just kind of had the very similar imagery to Susan with the little mushroom circle and the flowers and the little characters lying on the ground. Mine's the lighthearted version. Issues miraculously from the roots. I had the butterflies coming up. Just again, thinking about maybe this was about the coming of spring and not really, sort of like we were ignoring that second part of the poem because I guess it was kind of heavy. So again, just seeing the tree and then the butterflies coming across.
Butterflies are definitely miraculous.
Yeah. And I just finally saw Encanto, so it was on there. If we follow the stream, so I did that thing where we kind of follow the text, and then just the characters starting out, and the character sort of reflected in water, and the character sort of anticipating what we're going to see as we're following. And across the burned ground, I used a snake, sort of like a little, maybe he's threatening, maybe he's just a little garden snake, but his pattern is kind of like a spiky thorn kind of thing. And then the we shall find, I couldn't quite leave it blank, so I just put some lines imagining maybe we're underground or something. And then my abstract sort of placeholder for the idea that maybe the character's lying in the grass and he's seeing all these things in the clouds, and it's this sort of beautiful happy end.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
So it's all the same imagery from the thing, the flowers, the snake,
right.
but maybe a little abstracted, that's all. Yeah.
I love that idea of if we follow the stream as the letters, going like that. That was lovely.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm pushing myself to try to use words like pictures and push them around and not just have them typeset. Yeah.
Oh, that's so nice. So nice. It's 5:03. I'm happy to stay. I don't have to be anywhere. I'm happy to continue with anyone that Deb or Erla or Em.
Can I just put mine in the chat as JPEGs because I'm not able to share my.
Okay.
Yeah.
But who would someone else like to? I'm just looking at my pictures on the top. Erla or Christine?
Sure, I can show you.
Okay, I'm gonna replace the pin.
I totally messed up with the pages. I totally messed up, and now I know why you bind. make the book, you bind it, and then you add things. So
That's why you make a dummy book. I mean,
well,
this is,
yes, and I
yeah.
just it threw me about like we were supposed to add more. Anyway, whatever. I have a little idea that I'm going to do. So
okay.
Under the chestnut trees are ferns knee deep,
Mhm.
and so in under this fern there's hat and little miniature hat and scarf.
Mhm.
Trampled through them, and we shall find the spring. And there's a book laying under the fern. And that's where I think I messed up here. Which issues miraculously from the chestnut roots. And so there's in this there's a little house that says welcome, and the door's left.
Oh, nice.
Like a whole fairy story, huh?
Very
Uh-huh.
clear, little broom leaning up, and then and if we follow the stream amongst the thickets, so here's the stream, and then there's a little there's some washing hanging up.
Oh.
Right.
Across the burnt ground where the briar snatches. I had to look up exactly what a briar was because I wasn't quite sure. So it's like a wild rose. So there's pokies. There's some pair of mittens hanging up, a coat. Looks like a little campfire, some little logs to sit on. And we shall find under the tree. So pardon me, under the hill. So I'm picturing going over the hill, and this is it's a forest that's
right.
It's been deforested.
Yeah, deforested. But there's a little house that there's cobwebs on the front door. There's a bucket tipped over, a little book.
Oh wow.
A little suitcase that's laying half empty, and one that's
man.
Wow.
ready, like it's somebody had to leave it behind.
Wow.
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 Huh. Amazing. It's like you set us up so lyrically, and then boom. Yeah. Wow. Deb has to go. Christine, are you up for sharing?
Yeah, so I think I took the directions a little too literal. So like on the first page, I started drawing like the ferns, but then he said put something not ferns. So I just put a random safety cone.
Awesome.
And then like instead of spring, I put winter. Like I think I just took it a little too literal. And then I put mushrooms too. I thought they were cute.
Hold it up a little higher.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Right, okay. Right.
Like, and then instead of follow the stream, I could follow the sign. Like just like kind of like random. And then like I put like I was referring to what it was that it actually isn't.
And what was that one? What was that line?
Just like the burnt ground. It's just water.
Into water. Yeah, that's great.
And then I just like kind of blanked out on the rest, but like I did it differently this way. So, but like I did it wrong too. The first I did it like the 8, and so I cut it, but it all worked out.
I like those obvious opposites, like like spring and like winter. Like what the hell? I mean, like it's jarring. It's jarring. It doesn't seem like a formula because there's so much to be confused about or contrast with, and like the sign is a stream. Like just thinking, how is a sign a stream? That's interesting.
Yeah. They're so varied. That's what's so fun. The way everybody takes this and plays with it in their own very special way. It's so great. So I don't know how we're going to see M's.
I think I can share screen. I've got M. You just shared 3, right?
Yeah, I just pasted them into the chat. I think you can just click it in the chat.
Okay.
Yeah, but I can share screen so that we're all looking at them simultaneously.
Oh, okay.
Both the
Yeah, I don't draw fast, so this was a little hard for me, but
Sure.
I got 3 sentences done.
So it starts with the fern, right?
The first one
top
is the fern.
Yeah, is that
first one
showing?
is-
No,
No.
You're on the
no,
third one.
You're on the third.
Oh,
one.
sorry. Okay.
No.
Under the chestnut ferns
Yeah.
knee deep, yeah.
extra fern, kind of literal.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Trample through them and we shall find the spring.
Oh, sweet.
Oh, that's lovely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's almost like you're trampling in the spring.
Yeah.
Yeah, I figured if you were trampling and you found a spring, then your feet would be in the
Be
water.
wet,
Yeah.
but how decoratively wet, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the water looks like little shoots and plant life almost.
Yeah.
Fronds and leaves of water.
This was where I realized I was going to have to draw a lot faster if I was going to try to do this. So the fern took like half of the time.
Mm.
Well,
Yeah,
again, I
it-
mean,
it
the idea of
shows.
this is,
It shows. It's really nice.
wait, go to the third one.
Yeah.
And this one I did really
This is
fast.
it, and the chestnuts. Oh, nice.
Oh, nice roots.
Yeah.
And the roots underground rather than something outside of the roots.
And
Outside of
there's
the
the
invisible roots.
spring, right? The blue is the
Okay.
water,
Oh,
Yeah.
right?
there we
And
go.
Issuing
think that-
miraculously.
Yeah.
The hand lettering matches so well with the pictures.
Yeah.
It makes the book a whole, I think.
Yeah. I mean, Steve, you suggested non-literal, but I think both of them work.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think the yeah. It's that complementarity.
Yeah.
The variation.
Right.
This sort of reminds me of Tom Hart did the Friday Night Comics probably 3 weeks ago now, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago now, where he had us all, like crowdsource a list of emotions or feelings. And then everybody picked 2 and drew them abstractly across the evolution from feeling A to feeling B across 6 panels. And then he had us also crowdsource song lyrics that were, I think, 5 words. And then you were supposed to randomly pick one of those song lyrics and apply it to your images. And it just completely transformed it in a way that here it feels like, we all have the same poem, that interpreted on a scale of kind of literal to less literal, figurative to abstractly. And each rendition is completely unique and different and lovely.
Did everybody get to share?
Mm-hmm. Susan, I'm writing that in the notes. Each rendition is completely lovely, but you mentioned something about Tom. When was it?
So SAW is sponsoring an event each week called Friday Night Comics.
Right.
It's at 4:00 California time. It's an hour, and he invites a guest cartoonist to come in and lead us through an exercise, and
Right.
and then it's sort of focused like the one that we
Right.
just did here, and then people can share at the end. And this one was just particularly around abstractly describing the evolution of feeling 1 into feeling 2. People did different feelings, and then just randomly picking a 5-word line from a lyric. People put their favorite lyrics in the thing, and then you laid that on top. And it was just, some of this is quite different from what I do, but that sort of overlay of image and text that aren't directly related to each other.
Right. Right. So the text and the image.
Like it makes the little puzzle that you want to play with in your mind.
Is
Right. I think Steve had said that, that one of the poems you read to us was a confusion or a puzzle, and you kind of liked the puzzle part of it.
Yeah.
okay. Huh. Cool. Well, off to a little bit of a rocky start, but I think I feel like it's just this great learning curve to figure this out in terms of accessibility. And as far as playing with book forms, I'd love to keep going. So I don't know that this is the time I can do, but Steve and I will talk after this and see sort of, if we want to keep, how we want to make this work.
Yeah. And probably it's going to have to be at a different time.
Yeah, I can't do afternoons really. It's when I take care of my grandchildren. So it would have to be more of a morning thing. But even moving it around to morning and evening brings different people. So that's good. But
in terms of accessibility, I think we're so challenged to work well for people in the non-North American time zones.
Right.
And so they really enjoy generally morning times. Okay. So
that's
I
nice.
think I've been really trying to advocate for.
Inga's really nodding her head. Yeah, that's great. That's
yes.
a good point. Yeah. Yeah, I can do mornings. Wednesday morning is actually my best morning. So. Well, anyway, I just want to thank everyone and Steve, thank you for, inviting me to do this with you.
Yeah, thank you, Jill.
It's a wonderful kickoff to another great opportunity in our community.
I know.
So thank you both.
Yeah, please, if you will, share your stuff on a Mighty Network.
Tell us who wrote the poem.
Malcolm Crowley, right?
Yes, and that was the second half of the poem.
Okay.
So there's more to it.
Yeah.
To look that up.
Yeah. Since I got my lines mixed up, I'd like to read the poem again.
Right, I would too. Yeah.
Yeah. Poem for Two Voices by Malcolm Crowley.
Okay.
Maybe we'll do it as a overlapping one sheet.
Thank you very much.
It was wonderful.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks, was great.